I don't use Reddit like at all, so forgive me if I don't have all the mannerisms down. I, 27M, went to the doctor for leg pain. I thought it was just a knee or hip problem. Got told I got bone cancer and would be dead in 3 to 6 months without treatment. They said with chemo I might be able to last another year, but odds were slim. Another option was surgery, which could add 5 years, but they'd be taking a huge chunk of my hip bone and it would severely hamper my mobility. It's more common in younger folks, but apparently I'm just lucky. Yay for me. Don't quote me on this, I'm just a dude who half listened to his doctor summarize this all. Look, the truth is, I'm not terribly upset. Maybe it just hasn't set in yet, I don't know. I've been sitting on this for about 2 weeks and keeping it to myself. I've never really enjoyed life, which sounds terrible, I know. I'm not suicidal, but if I were in a plane crash, I've always felt like my first thought would be, finally, it's over. Let's be honest, living is hard, and it kinda sucks. I'm not suicidal or nothing, but I've never wanted to live forever. That said, my wife, 28F, has a plethora of mental health issues. I love her more than anything in the world. I would die for her in an instant. More importantly, I've been willing to live for her. She's struggled with suicidal thoughts, with depression and anxiety. She's one of the strongest people I know, but has to deal with some of the worst demons I've ever seen. I've tried my best to help her, and we've made it work for 7 years. 7 years where she has been the highlight of my existence, and I like to think she thinks the same of me. When I got this news, the first feeling I had, after the numbness had faded, was relief. Obviously, there's some fear of the unknown, but mostly relief. But I don't know how to tell my wife. She only just got out of a major depressive rut, and I'm afraid this could tip her back into that rut. On top of that, she would probably tell me to pursue treatment, to fight till the end. I love her, but I honestly don't think that would do anything. If I go through surgery, I last 5 years, maybe. 5 years where my mobility will be extremely limited. I'm almost certainly going to lose my job from it, physical labor, and with it, my health insurance. I'm sure there are legal protections, but how far would those extend? I literally wouldn't be able to return to work ever, best case. If I lose my job's health insurance, my wife doesn't get her meds, and we go back to the depressive spiraling. On top of all that, I'm not sure I could stand to be that large of a burden on my wife. She has plenty of problems, but if I became a cripple, she would have to not only care for herself, which she already has problems doing, but care for me, all while there's a ticking clock over our heads. I'm sure if I asked her, she'd say, of course I'd care for you, I love you, but that's easy to say. Reality, bitterness, and resentment would build up. I couldn't support her the way she'd need. I couldn't contribute. I don't think I could bear to watch my wife slowly begin to resent my existence. That scares me far more than dying. Chemo, I last maybe another miserable year of slowly withering away. Not very ideal, and with all the same problems. So my question is, how do I tell her? I understand I'm being selfish for wanting to just leave, but her receiving my life insurance without mountains of medical debt is by far the most appealing option here. I don't want to hurt her, and I can't bear to be a burden. So how do I express my reasons in a way that makes sense? I don't know. This is probably a mistake going to Reddit, but nothing to lose. TLDR, I got cancer. I'm dying. With treatment, I last 5 years of severely limited mobility, and my wife will have to care for me. My wife already suffers enough, and I don't want to see her begin to resent me. I'd honestly rather just die, get it over with. How do I tell her? Edit. To be clear, y'all, I'm going to tell her. It would be far worse if I just drop dead and it's a shock. I just don't know how to tell her. Update. Update for October 23rd. All right, y'all. First up, I want to thank everyone for their advice, their support, their concern for my mental health, and compassion for me and my wife. It's been a wild few days, but I, for one, hate an unsatisfying ending to any piece of hot goss I come across. So I figure the least I could do was give an update on what's happening, where I'm standing, and clarify any points of confusion that I'm seeing. To clarify, the plan was always to tell her. I only wanted to find the best way to inform my wife of my decision in a way that A, made it clear she wasn't to blame and that this was my choice, B, gave her enough room to state her opinion on the matter and to have her felt heard, and C, to try and prevent a complete mental collapse in these last few months. Another point of clarification is regarding my health. I'll try to clear that up here. I have malignant osteosarcoma, high-grade stage locally advanced. It began in the right side of my pelvis and has crossed the midline into the left side. It has invaded both sides of the sacrum, but has not reached any major blood vessels or organs. The sacrum, as I understand it, is the flat, triangular bone that connects the spine to both sides of the pelvis. The tumor being malignant means that it is expanding and is eating into the foundation that lets me stand and sit upright. This has resulted in pain in my upper right leg. This is happening because the tumor is pressing on nerves that run from my spine, through my pelvis, and into my leg. This has resulted in a burning, throbbing feeling. I've seen a lot of confusion on why I don't pursue the surgery. The way it's been explained to me is that surgery cannot remove the cancer completely, as it is on both sides of sacrum. It's simply too late for that. The operation would mean removing most of the pelvic bone, including the areas that connect my spine to my legs. This would result in me not being able to walk, as the thing propping my spine up on my waist is gone. I wouldn't be able to sit up straight without support. The pelvis is what gives you balance and structure in your sitting position, and again, it's gone. What would happen is I would up tilting and falling onto one side if I attempted to sit. I would need a specialized wheelchair designed for spinal and pelvic support to remain upright and transfer safely. I would need assistance laying in bed properly, going to the bathroom, and dressing. This would be my reality for at most 5 years. The other thing to bear in mind about the surgery is that it is not a curative measure. It would be a life-prolonging type deal, meant to remove the bulk of the tumor, to slow the spread, relieve pain on the nerves, and avoid complications like fractures, infections, etc. Another point, some have made it about prosthesis, hip replacements, and prosthetics. I've asked my doctor about this, and they've told me there simply wouldn't be enough left of my pelvis to do this. A hip replacement relies on anchoring itself into a healthy bone. There just isn't enough left to do this. Currently, I am pursuing options to reduce the pain and try to make the next few months livable. Doctors have prescribed for the worst of it, and we are investigating something called palliative radiation therapy, which I think is a kind of mini chemo, meant to shrink the tumor for some relief. We're also considering nerve-blocking agents, where they deaden the nerves and numb the pain. The doctors have recommended I use a cane for now to keep pressure off my right side. All right, the big update. My wife. The day after my post, I spoke to her that morning after I had made us a big breakfast of her favorite things. Her, knowing me, she refused to eat anything until I explained why. We had a long conversation, and we both called in for work. She was understandably upset. Angry, hurt, sad, grief-stricken, bereft, mopey, and all the other synonyms you can put on here. At one point, she had become nauseous, and we played the hold my hair out of my face game over the toilet. As I explained my reasoning and how I wanted to proceed, she was understandably angry. She said almost everything I thought she would, that she was willing to take care of me, that I shouldn't leave her alone, that we would find new ways of living. I ended up giving her my paperwork, and we went over it in more detail than I had previously read. TBA, I was kind of avoiding it. I knew the basics of what was in there, but it was surprisingly difficult to go over it in detail. I had written down many of the suggestions on what kind of solutions there were for living from this Reddit page, but one by one, they looked more and more dire. We had a couples counseling session that afternoon, part of the reason I had told her then, and we had sent word a few hours ahead of what was going on. Our therapist helped me and my wife state our mindsets more clearly, and we were able to make some good progress in the meantime. Our therapist gave us the number for a grief specialist for us to get in contact with before we left. One thing that was very surprising for me was that night, my wife told me she wanted me to get her pregnant. I objected because WTF, but when pretty girl takes her clothes off, your brain kinda just goes awooga. I had an oncologist appointment this morning. I had this timed out, y'all. I brought my wife with me, and she ended up taking the lead in that particular arena. She had done some research on possible treatments, some of which y'all suggested, and had a shit ton of questions for the doctor. We spent maybe a good hour there as we went through all the options and she explained what was happening to my hip. The doctor was very knowledgeable and patient with us. My wife ended up getting angry a bit, but the doctor was polite and understanding. We ended up spending another half hour in the parking lot of the hospital as she had a full meltdown while heading out to the car. That was difficult to be a part of. Our plan for today is that she's going to lay down for a bit, gather herself for a while, and then we're going to tell our parents. She's close to both of her parents, and I am less so. I'm closer to my siblings. I'm the oldest of 6. We're going to tell her parents first, which will let them be able to watch my wife for a while before I go and break the news to my own family on my own. Thanks again for all the good wishes, and I hope this can help clear up some of the confusion. TLDR, medical clarifications. Told my wife, and she is understandably upset. Went to our therapist, who helped us see each other's POV. We also saw an oncologist, and my wife got the opportunity to drill the doctor for details. My wife is still looking for a solution that doesn't sacrifice quality of life, but she's hitting a wall. Next step is to break it to our respective families. She has already gotten 2 major breakdowns, which is about what was expected.